The desert evening was supposed to be silent. That was all the old biker had wanted. Silence deep enough to settle the noise in his bones. But the moment he pushed open the splintered door of the forgotten cabin he had bought for his retirement, the silence shattered. Two pairs of wide, frightened eyes stared back at him from the shadows inside. A boy and a girl, dirty, trembling, clutching each other as if the world had already taken too much from them for a man who had survived gang wars nights. On cold highways, in a lifetime of mistakes, nothing had ever pierced him quite like the sight of those children in his new home. Before the shock even settled, he felt his heart crack open in a way he never expected at this age, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that even the toughest souls can carry gentle hearts. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. The old biker, named Ray by the brothers he once rode with, had come to this lonely stretch of desert to finally lay down the weight he had been carrying. Decades on the road had taken their toll. Friends buried, scars too many to count, and memories that visited him in the dead of night like ghosts demanding attention. Retirement wasn't something men like him usually got. But when fate gave him the chance, he grabbed it. The cabin was small, worn, and miles from anywhere anyone cared about exactly what he thought he needed. But the discovery of the kids changed the air. Instantly, Ray stood frozen as the dust swirled around his boots, unable to comprehend why two children were hiding there. They looked like they hadn't eaten properly in days. The boy couldn't be older than 12, the girl maybe 10. They backed deeper into the corner, their tiny shoulders shaking. Ray felt something shift inside him, an instinct older than his wildest days. He wasn't a father, never had been, but something in their fear pushed aside the tough exterior he had built like armor. He didn't ask questions at first. Instead, he slowly stepped outside, leaving the door open so they wouldn't feel trapped, and rummaged through the bag on his motorcycle. When he returned, he placed a bottle of water and a wrapped sandwich on the dusty floor, then stepped away. The kids looked at the food as if it were treasure hunger. Eventually, one, and they crawled forward to grab it. Ray watched carefully, making sure not to scare them. But the way they ate, fast, desperate, told him more than anything they could have said. As the sun lowered over the desert horizon, painting the land gold, Ray leaned against the doorframe and let the truth settle in. These kids weren't just hiding, they were surviving. And the cabin he had bought for peace had suddenly become a refuge for souls who needed it more. He didn't pry into their past. The scars on their arms, the dirt on their faces, the exhaustion in their eyes, they all spoke loud enough. In the weeks that followed, Ray found himself changing in quiet, surprising ways. He started leaving small meals at the cabin when he rode into town. He fixed the rusty hinges on the door so it wouldn't creak and scare them. At night, he patched holes in the roof so the wind wouldn't whistle. Through slowly, the children, Liam and Grace, they eventually whispered, began trusting him enough to step outside when they saw him coming. They still kept their distance, but they no longer hid. It wasn't until one cold night, when the desert wind screamed like a living thing, that the truth finally came out. Ray found them huddled behind the cabin, shivering under a thin blanket. Without thinking, he took them inside, lit a fire, and wrapped them in his old leather jacket. And there, in the flickering glow, the story unfolded. Their father had abandoned them on a long drive through the desert after a violent outburst. Their mother had passed. Years earlier, they had been wandering, living off scraps, hoping someone kind might cross their path. They had chosen Ray's cabin only because it looked like the safest place to collapse. The weight of their words landed heavy in Ray's chest. He had lived a life full of brotherhood and betrayal, but never had he witnessed something so cruel. He felt an anger burn inside him, not the wild, reckless kind from his youth, but a protective anger, the kind that said he would not let these two disappear into the world's blind spots. And so, his life took a turn he never saw coming. The man who once chased the roar of engines and the thrill of lawless nights became the guardian of two broken children. He taught them to cook simple meals, showed them how to mend fences, and let them ride in the passenger seat of his old car. When they went into town for supplies, Liam liked the way Ray's stories filled the silence. Stories of the road and the lessons he'd learned. Grace liked planting seeds in the small patch of dry earth Ray turned into a tiny garden for her. The cabin, once a place meant for loneliness, slowly transformed into a home. Shaped by hope, Ray knew he couldn't keep them hidden forever. He contacted social services, prepared for a fight, ready to do whatever it took to keep them safe. But as the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Ray wasn't the danger. He was the miracle they needed. The authorities saw how the kids clung to him, how their eyes no longer held fear, and after months of evaluations, paperwork, and tense waiting, Ray was granted legal guardianship the day he signed the papers. He felt something he hadn't felt in decades, a sense of purpose bigger than himself. The desert cabin didn't just give him retirement, it gave him a second chance at life. The man who once believed he was too worn, too damaged, too late for anything meaningful found himself caring for two children who needed him as much as he needed them. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional stories to life. Before the ending, please comment below. Kindness can change destinies. Ray never planned on being a hero. He never sought redemption, but sometimes life chooses unlikely people to do extraordinary things under the vast desert sky. With the wind whispering through the sagebrush, an old biker found family where he least expected it, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel alone.